We've got the YPD report number, and the incident type is unaliving attempt. Let's go over together everything that I was sent from the Yuma Police Department in Arizona regarding the day that Marvon Vaughn Jackson, an inactive duty Marine, was allegedly found by his wife, Andrea McCray. It was May 23rd, 2022, and I've received 15 pages of information along with an email response to my Freedom of Information Act request. The main two things on my mind right now: Yuma Police have stated in writing this is still an active and ongoing investigation, and also there's a portion here towards the end of the report which speaks about Andrea Dre McCray's reaction when she overheard the medical professionals speaking with one another after tending to Marvon McCray that day and discovering that he did indeed have a pulse when he was taken away from their home in Yuma, Arizona. The way that Dre's eyes got really big and how she grabbed the hands of a person. Let's go over all of that now. And you will see all of the proof that I received directly from the horse's mouth, Yuma, Arizona PD, and the reasons why they denied some parts of my request. I will be reading directly off the screen so I won't get anything wrong, and let's discuss it together. So on July 29th, 2022 at 3:01 p.m., that was only 2 days ago because today, as I'm recording this, it is July 31st on a Sunday. So I got this Friday directly from the Yuma PD record staff, and it says, "Good day. Your report request has been completed and is attached. At this time, the Yuma PD is declining to produce the following records and/or information in relation to your public record request." So, in reference to this case 22-28606, 3 of the items that I requested that PD is declining include body-worn camera video, and they'll speak about that a lot in the upcoming report. The 911 call that Andrea McCray made that morning after finding her husband in the shed, allegedly after his attempt to hang himself, and photos of the rope and the alleged knife and the shed and the victim and everything. Of course, at this point is being kept under wraps, and of course some of them we don't even want to see. Nothing gruesome. Evidence photos can range from just informational to gruesome, but let's get into this report. Right after that, it says, Arizona law recognizes there are times when the disclosure of public records has a harmful effect on the duties of government officials or agencies and is detrimental to the best interest of the state. You have requested records from an active, ongoing investigation. Those are important words. Any of Vaughn McCray's loved ones who are worried and have been told that this is case closed, stamp. This is the update I got from the Yuma Police Department Records Division right there in Yuma, Arizona on 1st Avenue. Everything is legit here, directly from police. You have requested records from an active, ongoing investigation. Therefore, as of Friday, July 29th, that's the information I received. Of course, it could be updated by now, and just because something is active and ongoing and being investigated does not mean that anyone will ever be arrested. It does not mean that they will change their findings to anything other than Vaughn attempting to take his own life. Everyone, as Americans, we are all innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, until a person confesses, whatever. So I'm looking at this report from the prism of those factors. To continue, Yuma Police also told me, in reviewing the unique facts and circumstances of this case and balancing the state's interest in completing this investigation against the public's statutory access to records, the department had determined that the release of the above listed records at this time would negatively impact the department's ability to proceed with this investigation. That makes a whole ton of sense. If this were case closed, we know what happened, great public interest, here's all the photos, here's the body cam footage, there's no investigation, everything's closed, yeah, that could have been harmful, because what if the further they dig into this case, they do find some things because there is indeed so much evidence to sift through. I'm sure Yuma Police is probably a very small police department. We don't even have the broadcast scanner. I couldn't even hear any audio to see when police or EMTs were dispatched out to the house. Let's go over the police report. We've got the redaction release approval process worksheet, and Detective Bonillas, I believe it is Bonillas, approved the release of this report. Approved with the standard redactions. This report shows what happened at the home of Vaughn and Dre on May 23rd, 2022, and it's saying occurred from 8:28 a.m. until 8:28 a.m. That's apparently either when officers arrived or when they got the first call. Certain things, like the address of the home, I'm going to further redact just for privacy's sake, even if no one may be living in the home anymore. I don't know, but I'm going to redact it just to give them more privacy. It shows Andrea McCray. It'll show her phone number. It says race, white. She's a female. She was born in 1987. She's 34 years of age. Marvin Torres McCray, he's a black male. He is 29 years of age, born in 1992. So that's something we knew, and it's kind of playing into this case a little bit. He is 5 years younger than his wife, which of course many couples have an age difference, but it is playing into this case a little bit in terms of how much she ruled over him. We have evidence dated July 13th, documents, paperwork, the YFP run report. So that's the fire department's run report. And then we have on May 23rd, 2022, into evidence other, it's the actual rope. One thing you'll notice is that there is no knife entered into evidence, at least not according to this sheet, and they will mention that knife a little bit more, the one that Dre allegedly used to cut Vaughn down when she found him in the shed. And the officer will explain why he or she did not take it into evidence. It looks like page 2 is just a summary, and it's just their internal paperwork. It doesn't tell us much. The narrative for one officer begins on page 4 of the PDF. It's really page 3 of the report. I don't really know how to pronounce these officers' names. We'll just do the best we can. Officer ID is Iguane. Synopsis. On 5/23/2022, at approximately 8:28 hours, so that's 8:28 a.m., Marvin McCray attempted the S word by hanging himself in his side yard shed located at their home. As I understand it, and I've been trying to research their shed locations and stuff, apparently Dre and Vaughn had 2 sheds. There might have been one side yard shed and perhaps another one. I haven't been able to confirm that by seeing photos, but it says his wife, Andrea McCray, stated Marvin was blank and they had a disagreement the day prior. We don't know what he was. Marvin also suffers from blank, blank, and blank. Marvin was transported to the Yuma Regional Medical Center for further evaluation. Marvin was later flown to the Veterans Hospital in Tucson. This report is for information only. So we have additional YPD officers, someone named Sergeant E. Egan and Officer C. Reed. Now we're going to read Officer C. Reed's synopsis at the end of her report. What Reed says about Andrea's eyes growing wide at the mention of Marvin still having a pulse, that's what caught my eye, because I don't remember hearing that before. Digital media. Body-worn camera footage has been captured and submitted into the Yuma Police Department YPD Digital Evidence Management System, DEMS. Human memory and perception have limitations, and video evidence may depict events differently than the report writer perceived during the event or recalled at the time of writing this report. The report writer did not review the video in whole or part before writing this report. That's smart. First, you go off memory. You have an event, it's dramatic, and of course authorities are used to responding, unfortunately, to things like this, but apparently this report was written, just let me do it off of memory, and then later they can review their body cam footage to either corroborate or dispel what their mind thinks happened. Domestic relationship. Marvin McCray and Andrea McCray have been married for approximately 8 years, live together, and have children in common. Evidence collected, the rope. Injuries. Marvon McCray had an abrasion to his left arm and was on a ventilator at the Yuma Regional Medical Center. Narrative. On 5/23/2022 at approximately 8:28 hours, Officer Reed and I were dispatched to that home in reference to an attempted unaliving. Per the call notes, Andrea McCray found her husband Marvon McCray hanging in their shed. Andrea cut her husband down and began CPR. Upon arrival, I noticed the residence was on the south side of this one place and a certain avenue. Yuma Fire Department was already there and going towards the east side of the property, where a gate was to enter the backyard. There was a shed immediately to the east after entering the east gate. Inside the shed, I noticed a black male in the center of the shed. Certain things as we go throughout this report, I notice myself even making assumptions about what this report writer meant. And he or she says center, I imagine a center beam, and they will talk about how far in the shed. So center could just mean the center this way, and not in terms of depth. There are going to be things where you'll see police writing on the fly are not necessarily scientific, they're not detailed, and some things are left up to our interpretation. I mean, they are giving just the facts. Sometimes you will see those facts can be a little confusing. So let's keep going. The male was wearing blue pajamas and laying on his back. His head was towards the east and feet towards the west shed opening. A person's head being towards the east and feet towards the west, the opening of the shed, and I will have to map out their home. It could just mean his feet are facing in a westward direction and he's on his back and his head facing eastward. So it might have meant that he just fell back. It doesn't necessarily mean, as some have interpreted, that his head was facing one direction and his feet were in another direction. His arms were away from him. So we don't know if that means they were splayed akimbo, away from him. You know, that's what we have to work with. We can only mentally picture what they are thinking until we see the body cam footage. YFD, the Yuma Fire Department was assessing him while Andrea watched. I asked Andrea to walk with me to the front of the residence while YFD personnel worked on her husband. That makes sense. This officer asked Dre, come walk with me, because I can't imagine finding your husband in that condition and then watching the fire department work on him. So it was good the officer said, come away with me, and that would give the officer a chance to observe Andrea, her behavior, and interview her about what happened. This officer wrote, I noticed Andrea was agitated. She would shake, unable to keep her hands steady, and her voice broke every now and then. Sounds about right. Imagine you walk into this gruesome scene, seeing someone you love in that state. Sounds like Dre was a mess. But then the officer wrote, I asked Andrea to tell me what happened. Due to Andrea going back and forth, the following is a summary of my conversation with Andrea. Some folks have interpreted this to mean Andrea was physically walking back and forth. They think she was physically all over the place. That may have been what the officer meant, but I interpret it as Andrea was going back and forth in her conversation, in her thought pattern, in her stream of consciousness. If you watched the video analysis I did last night with Andrea, and the way she speaks and the way a lot of us might speak, her train of thought can be all over the place. So I think what this officer is saying, due to her going back and forth, it sounds like she was just rambling a lot. So this officer is saying, this is a summary of the conversation. It sounds like Andrea did not necessarily give this person a cohesive timeline easily. For complete details, please refer to my body-worn camera surveillance video uploaded to Axon Evidence. So that's where police give us access only sometimes, only if everything is approved and they say, okay, you can finally have this video footage or whatever. They'll send us a temporary link. They'll say, look, you have 7 days. This is your link. Get on Axon, get the video off evidence.com, and that's it. But we don't have that yet because it's been denied, which no matter what is a good thing, no matter how this shakes down, because it means they're looking further into the case to make sure all justice is enacted. Andrea stated she and her husband have been married for approximately 8 years. They have one child in common, but he raised her 2 older children. We know Andrea has those 2 older girls. Allegedly, their dad is apparently perhaps challenging the custody agreement. I don't know. That part isn't necessarily completely verified. We will see. We've seen court records, but we don't have privy to that in detail. Marvon suffered from blank, 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 and blank. In 2019, he went to a physical therapist, and maybe they give the actual name of the therapist here, but it's been redacted. When he went to the therapist, her husband's demeanor changed and he became someone she did not know. She said they always got along until after his therapy. Then he would change and become verbally abusive to her. At times, she would leave the residence because of the change. Marvon finally stopped using the therapist. He has had blank becoming verbally abusive. She denied they had arguments, only disagreements, but when the disagreements were severe, she would leave until his mood changed back to his normal loving self. When he had a blank, and that might be seizure, she would expect his attitude to change. She asked him to see a doctor, blank. She did not know if he ever made an appointment. Marvon going off to physical therapy may have been like a release of freedom to him. At this point, if he was only in the home and getting his physical therapy, and you know how you are with your hairdresser or your trainer or anyone, any of them can become like a counseling session. I believe whoever this physical therapist was probably a blessing to Marvon because he was probably able to explain and complain about his plight at home. Maybe it angered him. Maybe this physical therapist said, "Whoa, man, she's not letting you have money," or whatever his complaints may have been. And so Marvon then may have gone home and been angry afterward after these physical therapy appointments, because in my mind, that was one release where he was able to see things a little more clearly perhaps and realized how he was living with Andrea was not a good thing. But the way Andrea explains this to the officer, she makes it sound as if this physical therapist was the devil or something. The day prior, they had a disagreement. Andrea said the disagreement was during the afternoon. Marvon slept in the bedroom while she slept on the couch. He woke up at approximately 7:15 hours, so he was up early that Monday, 7:15 a.m. I do remember reading a lot of attempts of unaliving. Unfortunately, can happen on a Monday, especially when it's a daylight savings time change. But I don't think that was the case here. I don't think it was daylight savings time here, but every little detail can matter. He went into the children's bathroom to clean up as he usually does. She offered him tea, and he began to have a disagreement with her. She noticed he was more lethargic than normal. She said they try to use organic products for well-being. They use, which is an organic herbal medicine in the coffee family and has opioid properties. She believed he may have used more than normal, and there was a buildup of K in his system making him act that way. They disagreed with her, trying to calm him down. So much to unpack here. So he was up early at 7:15 a.m., cleaning up as he usually does. So it says he went into the children's bathroom to clean up as he usually does. So that's different. It doesn't mean he was necessarily cleaning himself up. Maybe we'll learn later, but the way it says is he is cleaning up the children's bathroom. As you can see in a lot of Andrea's videos, apparently I think she likes to cook, but she doesn't like to clean, so others are cleaning for her. So that might have been his duty as he normally does. He's up even though he's lethargic according to her. He's right up at 7:15 a.m. cleaning the children's bathroom. Now she's offering him tea, and right then is when he had the disagreement. Now if you've seen other videos, and we'll go through more videos in the future, is the plan. Marvon, I don't think he wanted to start drinking more and more of these teas. I believe some of them, maybe he went along to go along to get along, I don't know. But it sounds like the disagreement stemmed from drinking this stuff, which can be addictive, which is controversial, which may cause seizures. Marvon might have said, "I've had enough, I don't want any more." and maybe Andrea was not having it. Now she's telling this officer Marvin may have used more than normal and there was a buildup of K in his system, as if he was the one overdosing himself and not her. And again, she's saying they disagreed with her trying to calm him down. And it reminds me of that horrible argument audio we've heard where she's like, Marvin, I am speaking calmly. And he's yelling out of frustration saying, yeah, but you're not hearing me. So it's almost like, in my opinion, she wants to portray, I'm this calm, cool chick, and look at this dude just going off. She wants to portray him as the one who's out of control. And that's what that reminds me of. You know, she's just trying to calm him down, and that's the disagreement. And was it over more than the K? Did Vaughn blow up and say, look, I'm done? I don't want this K. I don't want this marriage. Was he trying to leave like he's done in the past? Did he ask her for any more money? And did she refuse him? Did he feel totally trapped in that home? After disagreeing for a while, Marvin went outside. So we don't know how long that while is. We just know, okay, he was up at 7:15. He was going to clean up as she usually did. They had a disagreement. She offered him some tea. Marvin went outside. Andrea McCray went outside to check on him and saw him hanging in the shed. She screamed, and her oldest daughter came outside to check on her. She told her daughter to go back inside the residence. She attempted to get him down using a wobbly chair within the shed, but was unable to. She obtained his knife and then cut him down. She called the police and began CPR as instructed. I asked Andrea if we could call anyone for her, but she refused. You know, I thought about, wow, why didn't she tell the officers, please, can you call my mom and tell her what's going on? Or can you call, here's Vaughn's family members? You know, she said they still had the phone numbers at that point, but she didn't want officers to call anyone. She was told about Amberly's place and asked if she wanted a representative to come out, but she refused. Amberly's place is the only family advocacy center in Yuma, Arizona, with a crisis team to assist victims of DV. So I get it, she didn't want to go there she didn't want anyone representing her from there coming out, but she refused. She said she just wanted to get her children situated and then go to the hospital. All of this seems like a normal response. I'm not attributing anything suspicious, or maybe I'm doing both. I'm trying to see, okay, I can understand this behavior would be normal for this reason, or it could be suspicious for this reason. I'm just going into this with an open mind. I told her I would write an information report to document the incident. I told her I would go back to the shed to document the area. I went into the shed and noticed a rope on the floor where Marvin was. I collected the rope and later placed it into evidence. I noticed the chair she mentioned earlier. The main beam went across the center of the shed from the opening to the back of the shed, so I can envision this main huge beam running along. I videoed the shed from within using my body-worn camera. I drove to the Yuma Regional Medical Center, YRMC, to check on Marvin. I was told he was on a ventilator and getting scans on his head. I was later informed Marvin had been flown out to a Phoenix hospital. I learned he was flown to the Veterans Hospital in Tucson. I called and learned Marvin was still on a ventilator and medication, but still showed no sign of brain activity. They were going to take him off the ventilator on Friday, May 27th, 2022, to see if he would breathe on his own. Case is for information, nothing further at this time. In my previous video, when I thought he had been flown to Tucson maybe on Monday, May 30th, I believe I was wrong. In reading this report, I believe Marvin must have been flown out that same day, Monday, May 23rd, from Yuma Regional Medical Center up to the Veterans Hospital in Tucson, because maybe the YRMC might be small, and maybe they couldn't handle the extent of his injuries. So police also included here on the PDF page 7, information about this case being re-merged. So something happened here. It says case 22-28606 has been re-merged. Please insert all property back. So you'll see emails on Thursday, June 2nd, 2022 at 8:20 6:26 a.m. to the police record specialist from the evidence technician and to others regarding case 2228606. Thank you. Evidence has been moved. Please inform evidence once the case has been merged again so we can reassign it to the original case number. It says, can you please remove the property from case 2228606? There was a problem merging the case. So something maybe technical happened here, but let's move on to Officer Rangeli, that person's narrative. Additional YPD personnel is Detective Escott. Narrative. Now this is a little bit later. On July 8th, 2022, Detective Escott requested I assist in obtaining the YFD run report for this case from the City of Yuma Fire Department. So you got to remember, by July 8th, 2022, this case really started to blow up on social media. We know from my previous video what Dre McCray told her followers happened to Vaughn, which wasn't much. She broke out with the news on May 31st that her husband Vaughn was in a coma. The way she said it, most of her followers assumed, oh, it's because he had another seizure. Obviously, Andrea wasn't forthcoming to Vaughn's family and friends. I don't know if she told anyone about this unaliving attempt, but the case didn't really start blowing up until around July. Sometime in there is when Vaughn's family or Vaughn's mom got access to the actual police report, just the first one, just part of what I'm reading here. And she realized, oh, it wasn't due to a seizure. Allegedly, it was due to this attempt to take his own life. And I believe she raised questions. Of course, a lot of people had questions. The case blew up. Justice for Vaughn started trending on Twitter. A lot of excellent YouTubers started making videos about this case. Facebook group administrators doing a great job to get to the bottom of things. I think perhaps why this additional information and run requests, I think that's why perhaps cops started taking a deeper look into this case because of all the international attention. On July 11th, 2022, I contacted the fire department administration. I was told they would send me a records request form to fill out and return. I received the form and returned it filled out. On July 13th, 2022, at about 9:28 hours a.m., I received the report from the fire department. I printed the report and placed it into evidence. I also placed a copy of it on Detective Escott's desk. Nothing further. So this case was moving along in July. Now we have Officer Iguane's narrative. Digital media. Body-worn camera footage has been captured and submitted into the Yuma Police Department YPD Digital Evidence Management System DEMS. Human memory and perception have limitations, and video evidence may depict events differently than the report writer perceived during the event or recalled at the time of writing this report. The report writer did review the video in whole or part before writing this report. That's a little different than the previous one who did not review the video. Narrative. On July 8th, 2022, at approximately 14:20 hours, so this is 2:20 p.m., I arrived at the Yuma Police Department to complete a supplement for this case to expand the information contained within the original report. So here's a little bit more info. Andrea McCray stated she went outside and found her husband Marvon hanging in the shed. She did not describe exactly how he was positioned when she found him. The shed was a basic two-door shed made of a metal material approximately 10 feet by 14 feet and approximately 7 feet tall at the center. So I'm pretty tall, like I'm almost 6 feet tall. So I think only a foot above my head when I'm standing, a foot or more, and that's just the top of the shed. So if Marvon, and I have to verify his height, I know he was taller than Dre, I believe. So if it's just right here, it's pretty close. It might not be as huge as people are thinking. And then if there's a beam below that top of the shed, the beam would be even lower, maybe even like right here. There were 3 metal beams across the top inside the shed. Although it had rust within its walls, it appeared to be sturdy. The beam appeared to be sturdy enough to hold Marvon McCray's body weight. Yeah, because especially he was so thin at that point, as witnessed by videos just days before this incident. He was very, very thin. I don't know how much he weighed, but he was very thin. The beam appeared to be sturdy enough to hold Marvon McCray's body weight. A rope could fit onto any of the ridge beams due to the ridges on the shed roof, allowing a rope to pass through. I'm imagining the beam looked like this and the rope could have just passed through. There was an old stool within the shed, which I believe was the one Andrea McCray said she stood on to cut Marvon down. I do not know if Andrea took the rope off Marvon. When I looked over the shoulder of a firefighter, I did not see any rope. Due to Marvon's position in the shed and the firefighter blocking the entryway, I was unable to see any rope around Marvon's body. I did not see any marks on Marvon's neck due to him being too far away when I first saw him. These are actual words of the report writer, but I don't want people to run with it like I've seen. I've seen some people say, see, the report says there were no marks on Marvon's neck, and that is not what is being said here. It just said, I did not see any marks on Marvon's neck due to him being too far away when I first saw him. So this officer was farther back, and of course the fire department's working on Marvon. They're the ones that were close to him. And so if there were any scars or anything like that, or rope marks or whatever, this officer says they did not see them because of their vantage point. I located the rope on the center floor of the shed after Marvon was taken away to the Yuma Regional Medical Center, YRMC. The rope appeared to be a natural fiber manila rope. From the loose end to the noose, it was approximately 4 feet in length. So the way this is written makes it seem as if the noose part was still perhaps intact or visible. I just imagine a noose part and up, and with Marvon being a Marine, he would know how to potentially tie knots. And I don't know if she cut him down up here. If she cut him down up here, we don't know where he was cut down, and we don't know if the noose was loosened and pulled over his head or if the noose was cut like that. We just don't have ideas of how this rope was cut. But this officer is saying from the loose end to the noose, it was approximately 4 feet in length. The diameter of the rope was approximately 1/2 to 1 inch. I was unable to tell if it was new or old, but it did not appear to be frayed. So this part is a big sticking point. It did not appear to be frayed, and we just don't know. It just says it's a natural fiber manila rope. We don't know if it has some kind of plastic coating on it or not. It just says it did not appear to be frayed. I don't know. I think experts would have to chime in here to figure out. We don't even know what type of knife she used. Did it have serrated edges? The knife wasn't even in evidence, but all they're saying is it did not appear to be frayed. I don't know, that could be suspicious, but it might not be because we need more details. I did not speak with the firefighters because I was with Andrea while they worked on Marvon, and they left afterwards. If a person is requiring their services, we typically let them do their job without obstructing them. Exactly, it's not the time to start asking the firefighters questions. I do not know what Marvon's body position was when YFD arrived at the shed. I arrived a few moments after the firefighter I saw entered the side yard. The period Andrea provided starts at approximately 7:15 hours when she saw him going to the bathroom. So she saw him going in there. She must have been somewhere on the couch. She sees Marvon reportedly going to the bathroom. The call came into YPD at approximately 8:28 hours. That's a good 1 hour, almost 15-minute timeline here. She stated they spoke with one another but did not provide an exact time of how long. She described Marvon hanging from the rope with something coming out of his mouth. Now I'm assuming they mean was it a liquid? Was it bodily fluid? And I think doctors would be able to tell us if that's normal. It sounds normal to me. We know when the body unfortunately is expiring, a lot of things can happen. But if they just say something coming out of his mouth, was it froth? Was it foam? Was it something physical? What was it? She tried to lift him using a stool which I did see within the shed. So maybe she panicked and grabbed a stool, and was she like standing on the stool or trying to put it under his body? Or what was she doing with the stool? We don't know. Andrea told me Marvan was about 2 steps inside, facing the front of the shed and slightly right, which would have been facing northwest. She said she cut Marvan down. She did not see any injuries, but saw red, which she believed to be blood on his left clavicle. So she cut him down. We don't know if she cut from here, if she cut from, most likely you think a person would try and cut up here. I don't know how difficult it was. How was she cutting? What did she use? She saw blood right here, something coming out of his mouth. And I'm wondering, did he cut himself? Was his attempt always hanging? Did he try and cut his carotid artery? I don't know. Or was it just blood that had maybe come from his mouth down to here? Her eldest daughter heard her scream and came outside, but according to Andrea, her daughter did not see Marvan, so she would not be able to corroborate Andrea on Marvan's positioning. Andrea's children were inside the residence during the interview. None of them came outside. Although not seen, I could hear children inside the residence, but their voices did not sound agitated or distressed. At that point, I guess maybe the kids, fortunately, didn't know everything that was going on, but her oldest had to know, because you'll see where the oldest did apparently come out, but did not go into the shed, I believe. Thank God the kids didn't see Marvan in this position, but I don't know if they saw him being wheeled out. Andrea stated their arguments were more of a disagreement due to her trying to answer his questions calmly. So that makes no sense, but you could see her saying that. It's always saying, oh, it's not really arguments, just a disagreement. Well, the leaked footage we heard sounded like a pretty big argument. It sounded like Marvan wanting to get away from her years ago. And she so focuses on, I'm trying to answer his questions calmly. She's focusing on like, I'm the calm one. See, I'm calm. I did not believe there was anything very disruptive when they had their disagreement, because I believe it would have upset the children, and I would have at least heard them crying or yelling, which I did not. Which may be a good assumption, but might not be. There have been cases. There was one wild case, I believe it was in Ohio. Literally, this guy knew that this husband was out of town, so he broke into the house, assaulted the wife, did all this stuff, and he left. And the children, bless God, never woke up, and they were never harmed, but a lot happened. So you can't always assume, well, if it was a big brouhaha, the kids would have woken up, or the kids would have done this or that, or they would have been crying or yelling. You can't assume every child or person will react in a certain way in a crisis. So I wish someone would have gone in the house to check on the children, ask the children questions. Who knows what they might have stated, what they might have seen, and that they would have told the officer directly from their own mouths. You know, it would be nice if we had the children on body cam, because they were old enough to be able to tell what they saw, and then people could decide whether to believe it or not, but at least they would have had their voices heard. While speaking with Andrea, I asked her if Marvan had tried this before, meaning the unaliving attempt. She stated a couple of months prior he had tried hanging himself in the closet with a belt, and the closet broke. That could be the truth. It just says a couple of months prior. So was this around the month of March? So I want to look at videos around that time to see his demeanor, but maybe he was growing in a more desperate state. Maybe Marvan had looked at their closet beam, or we don't know where in the closet, and tried to do that with a belt, but thank God the closet broke. I'm assuming the beam. Thank God this time his next alleged attempt was stopped. It's like God was saying, no, you're not going out of here, Marvan. And maybe this is all for some purpose or reason we don't know yet. It is unknown if this incident was reported to law enforcement. I did not ask any further questions of Andrea regarding this previous attempt at unaliving. So we don't know the details there. We didn't get a lot of details. We don't know if that attempt, if the closet broke immediately so he didn't lose any oxygen. We don't know. Andrea stated she cut Marvan down with one of her husband's knives. Looking at the rope, the ends did look like a knife was used to cut it. So at this point, page 10 in the PDF, it says, looking at the rope, the ends did look like a knife was used to cut it. What kind of knife? Where did she get the knife? It makes you wonder, like, what are the details? At least it's saying the ends did look like a knife was used to cut it. I did not collect the knife because the way the cut on the rope corroborated what Andrea said. So this person, this officer, just believed what Andrea said. Okay, looks right to me. I'm not collecting the knife. So just where is the knife? Do they have it now? Did they ever collect it? Is it in evidence? I don't see it listed in evidence. This person wrote, my investigative focus was on an attempted unaliving at the time. Therefore, I did not ask Andrea where she obtained the knife. I did not ask her to show me the knife. I never saw the knife. It was my belief the knife was used solely to free Marvin from hanging in the shed. I did not take photographs with my YPD issued camera because I used my body-worn camera to capture the scene. By using my body-worn camera, I believed I would capture the entire scene better and clearer than using my issued camera. So I think this is a learning lesson. Already this person says their investigative focus was on an unaliving. So it's almost as if this person's mind was made up, okay, I'm going to this shed where this man attempted to take himself out, and that's it. That's what his wife says, that's what my eyes see. So never mind that I don't see this knife that she allegedly used. I think many investigators know to survey the scene, but don't assume what you're being told by the wife or even by what your eyes might see is what is actually happening, because good cops know that the evidence will tell the story, and sometimes it doesn't tell the story you think it will tell. But maybe it will. I hope they have this knife. Maybe the body-worn camera footage will show a knife somewhere on the ground. Wherever this knife was, it's got to be close to the scene, you would think. Because if, heaven forbid, you find your husband hanging in the shed, you grab a knife from somewhere, you cut him down, you'd think the knife would be like, whoa, I'm throwing it. Or, I don't know if she had her phone on her. She probably did. I don't know if she took the knife and ran back inside with it to get her phone, or if she had her phone right there on her. Did she just toss the knife somewhere and immediately call 911? These things we will likely find out in due time. I did not go inside the residence due to what I believed was an attempted unaliving. Marvin is substantially larger than Andrea is. Yeah, well, they're both teeny. I don't know if he means just Marvin's taller. Marvin is substantially larger than Andrea is. If Andrea and Marvin were in a physical altercation, I believe I would have seen some type of injury on Andrea. So this person's saying, look, if Marvin had hit her or something, I would have seen something on Andrea, and I didn't see any injuries. If a physical altercation would have happened within the residence, I believe the children would have been upset, yelling and crying, which I did not hear. This person didn't go in the house, so they don't know if anything was disrupted. There were multiple items on the pathway to the shed, which did not appear to be disturbed. The shed looked like a typical shed with items everywhere, but there was dust over everything, indicating no disturbance. The stool was in the shed, as stated by Andrea. I do not believe Andrea had the upper body strength to lift Marvin. So yeah, he's saying I guess she didn't have enough strength to lift him up and cut or what have you. All these indications led me to believe the incident was an attempted unaliving. I later went to YRMC to check on him, but he was at X-ray when I arrived, then flown to the Veterans Hospital in Tucson afterward. I did not see Marvin while at YRMC, but Officer Reed later mentioned she saw an abrasion on his arm. Nothing further at this time. So Officer Reed's report is the most interesting to me. We'll get to that in a few, but let's first read Officer Igani's narrative. I don't even know if these officers' IDs are their actual names, or I'll just read what I see. Narrative. At the time of this incident, I had not been issued a body-worn camera and do not have video of this incident to review. I did, however, review Officer Reed and Officer Iguana's body-worn camera videos to refresh my memory to complete this supplement. So it reads, on 5/23/22 at 8:28 hours, YPD dispatch received a call for service relating to an attempted requested unaliving at the address in Yuma. I acknowledged the call at 8:29 hours and was marked as dispatched to the call at 8:32. I was marked on scene at 8:38. These times are according to the timestamps by YPD Dispatch. The call notes supplied by YPD Dispatch shown on the dispatch tab on my in-vehicle computer showed the following. A female found her husband hanging and the reporting party has cut the husband down. The male subject husband is possibly Marvon McCray per previous calls. So we know Andrea liked to call police quite a bit. CPR was in progress and the children were inside. The male subject was in the shed in the backyard. The reporting party's dogs may try to bite. The reporting party was stopping CPR to put the dogs away. I know people are giving Andrea a hard time for putting the dogs away, but I feel this is not unusual. I know you're never supposed to stop CPR, but you do have to secure your dogs for medical personnel coming in. The firefighters don't want to get bitten, and firefighters, EMTs, you can chime in. What is the standard protocol for you're going to a residence to try and save someone, but you have some dogs? I mean, I understand. I have very protective dogs. They are protective, I'll put it that way. If someone they don't know is coming into their yard, their territory, in such a crazy situation where the owner is freaking out anyway, I understand why Andrea said these dogs might try to bite. So imagine, I don't know where the dogs were to begin with, but imagine if the dogs were roaming around the yard. Andrea finds Marvon hanging. She cuts him down. She calls 911. She starts CPR, and they must have asked her, do you have any weapons? Do you have any dogs? Or whatever on the scene. I don't know if they instructed her maybe to put the dogs away. So if the children weren't out there and no one else is helping her, I can understand. I'm not saying it was necessarily the right thing to do, but it's plausible that she would have had to get the dogs away to get the medics to come in so the dogs won't bite the medics. That doesn't sound that irrational to me. I don't necessarily think she stopped CPR to say, oh, let me go play with these puppies, put them away. Back to the notes. This is confusing. Reporting party's child coming outside saying father told him not to come outside. We don't know. That was obviously the son, little cute Raza. Oh my goodness, I could just cry. Oh my goodness. If you go watch Molly Go Lightly and Justice for All doing an excellent job on this case, Raza must have come outside saying father told him not to come outside. So we don't have details. It says reporting party's child coming outside saying father told him not to come outside. So did Marvon actually say to Raza, was Raza up that morning and was he walking outside, and did Vaughn tell Raza, don't come outside? Is that what they're saying? Reporting party's child coming outside saying father told him not to come outside. We only heard about the oldest daughter, Bella, coming outside. So when exactly did Raza come outside? The other reports are claiming the kids were all pretty much inside. So was it Andrea? Is this something they heard over the 911 dispatch? Did they hear Raza coming outside and was Andrea telling him, no, go back outside. Daddy told you not to come outside, or that part's confusing. So it says reporting party telling the child to go back in house. So I don't know. Do they really mean Raza? You know, reporting party's child coming outside saying father told him not to come outside. Are they confusing Raza with Bella? But then the reporting party telling the child, go back in the house. So did both Raza and Bella come outside at one point? The reporting party's husband's name is Marvon McCray. When I arrived on the scene, I saw that the Yuma Fire Department YFD personnel and Officer Iguina had already arrived on the scene. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing these names wrong. Officer Iguina was talking to a female I believe to be the wife because I knew from the call for service information a female was on scene and the male who hung himself was married. He was talking to her in the area of the front door. The home was constructed as a manufactured home with the front door facing north. The front door was located towards the west end of the home. The front of the home had a concrete sidewalk running east to west. It connected the driveway to the east side yard gate. The front yard consisted of a concrete driveway on the west side and sand on the east side. There were 2 black pickup trucks parked in the driveway. One was on the west side of the driveway, one facing north, and the truck parked on the east side was facing south. Behind the pickup truck on the west side of the driveway was a bumper pull camper, hitch side to the north, with the awning extended. There was a black 4-door sedan parked on the east side of the driveway facing north behind the truck. In the sand area of the front yard, I saw a picnic table, 3 lawn patio chairs, and 1 small patio table. Officer Reed was standing at a side yard gate on the east side of the home watching YFPD personnel. This gate was made of wood planks and was connected to a wood plank fence that ran along the property. I approached Officer Reed and stood with her. I saw that YFD personnel was performing CPR on what I believed to be the male. I could not see very much due to the small confined area and the number of YFD personnel tending to the male. After a short time, I started moving a bunch of items that would hinder their removal of the male. These items were covering the sidewalk, which led from the shed area to the front sidewalk. The items I moved were approximately 14 orange-colored traffic cones, a section of styrofoam board, 2 bulb shop lights with no bulbs installed, 1 fluorescent light bulb which appeared to belong in the shop light, 1 flat piece of a cardboard box, and I bent over a section of chicken wire. I removed these items from the sidewalk area and placed them on the pile of other items on the east side of the sidewalk. These items were sitting in front of the small wooden shed just north of the metal shed YPD personnel was in front of. This small wooden shed did not have any doors on it. The items I moved did not appear to have any involvement in the attempted unaliving. At one point I noticed YFD had placed the automatic chest compression machine on the male and it appeared to be working properly. I stayed outside the fenced area to the front of the home until after YFD removed the male. I did not see much of the male as they carried him past me and placed him on the gurney. He was covered by the automatic compression machine and the tarp-like material used to carry him. I did not move in closer to get a better view because he was surrounded by YFD personnel who were situating him for transport. I did not want to get in their way. After YFD started moving the male to the ambulance, I walked to the metal shed. This shed looked to be several years old and was constructed in sheet metal. It appeared to be approximately 8 feet by 10 feet in size. I believe the roof's peak was 6 to 7 feet high. So we have like a small shed here. It's not like one of these, taller. I believe like my shed would be taller than 6 to 7 feet in height. When I looked into the metal shed and saw a piece of brown rope inside it in the center of the floor area. So this person did see rope. One described it as manila, which is lighter in color, and now this person is describing it as brown. The rope appeared to be made of natural fibers and was maybe 1/2 inch thick. I did not examine the rope. The construction of the center beam for the roof of the shed was of metal, I believe aluminum, and appeared to be strong enough to support a person's weight. After leaving the shed area, I walked up to where Officer Iguania was talking to the female. I stood there listening to their conversation to gain a better understanding of the incident. The female was talking about her husband's past mental health issues, some medical issues, and marital issues. For details of the conversation, see Officer Iguania's body-worn camera video. While standing there, Officer Reed approached us and told us YFD was transporting because they were able to detect a heartbeat on the male. So they got a heartbeat, and Andrea does speak about this in one video where she just went really personal live, doing her makeup, telling, I believe, her intimate slay mafia for the very first time, and I've got to get a date on this video, about Vaughn not having a heartbeat at first and then having one after all the CPR.
I love Daddy so much, and I need him, and he needs me, and it's very apparent by the way he's recovering and responding. This is not something that I shared with the public. This is only Slay Mafia. So y'all, this is Slay Mafia only, okay? This is what happens here stays here type conversation. That's very cute. Vaughn didn't have a pulse. When I seen him, he didn't have a pulse. I immediately did CPR, called 911. They told me how to do CPR. They told me to get over him, put my hand on his heart and push it like 2 inches down. And I'm like, my breathing was all crazy because I was freaking out. And then I'm pushing down, pushing down, pushing down. The ambulance gets here. They check his pulse. None. None. He had no pulse. He was gone. They gave him a medication to restart his heart, and it did. So when I see the progress that he's making, this is huge. You know, people are expecting him to just open his eyes. What?
I did tell Officer Reed that I saw a piece of rope in the shed. After listening to the female explain the past mental health issues of the male and the marriage problems between them, I believed at this time the male did attempt to unalive himself by strangulation inside of the metal shed. I did not talk to the wife, YFPD personnel, or enter the home. I cleared the scene at 9:09 a.m. NFI. Now, finally, let's get to this Officer Reed's narrative, which is, to me, the most interesting. Once again, they give the digital media body-worn camera footage has been captured, submitted to YPD, DEMS, human memory and perception can be different, have limitations. The report writer did review the video in whole or part before writing this report. Supplement. On 5/23/22, about 8:28 a.m., I responded to the house regarding an attempted unaliving. YFPD personnel was already on scene and with the patient upon my arrival. Officer Iguania was also on scene and speaking with the reporting party, Andrea McCray. A gate and a walkway led to the shed on the east side of the home. Several random items like traffic cones, what looked like PVC pipe, and a board of some kind were on the walkway, and YFPD personnel were stepping on and over them. YFPD personnel was in front of a small, what appeared to be a sturdy metal shed. YFP was performing life-saving measures on an unconscious male subject outside the shed. The unconscious male was later identified to me as Marvon McCray. Sergeant Egan arrived at my location and began moving some of the items mentioned out of the way from the walkway. There was also an overgrown bush to the south of the metal shed. The work area was cramped with medical personnel, and I stood near the gate out of the way. YFP personnel placed Marvon on a gurney, and I saw a scrape on his left arm, so we don't know where this scrape was on his arm. The scrape appeared fresh, but I did not see it very well as Marvon was still being attended to. I did not look for any other injuries so as not to interfere with YFD while they continued life-saving measures. So that scrape, I don't know if it came from, his body falling after being cut down or something else. YFD prepared to move Marvon onto a gurney. Since the workspace was minimal, the gurney was left outside the workspace in the front yard. YFD placed Marvon on a foldable stretcher and they carried him to the gurney. Before YFD carried him out, I walked over to Officer Iguana and Andrea and informed them that they would be moving him out and onto the gurney. I told Andrea to be prepared as many are not used to seeing loved ones in such condition. Andrea appeared sad and worried about Marvon. I also obtained Marvon's date of birth and full name. I walked with YFD to the ambulance and I was informed by YFD personnel. They were able to obtain a pulse. I walked to Officer Iguania where he was with Andrea McCray and told Officer Iguania that YFD was able to obtain a pulse. When I told Officer Iguania about Marvon having a pulse, Andrea heard and her eyes got real big and she stood up, reached out to me, grabbing my hands. She was shaking and her hands felt cool to the touch. YFD transported Marvon to the hospital. Once YFD vacated the scene, I walked back to the shed and a YFD personnel was there picking up the trash they had left. I spoke with the YFD personnel and asked who was on scene first. YFD personnel told me they believed Officer Iguania was on scene first. I asked YFD personnel if Marvin was already down when they arrived. YFD personnel told me Marvin was already down and pointed inside the shed. YFD personnel stated their call notes also stated either the homeowner or officer cut Marvin down. So they didn't know at that point, but apparently he had been cut down. I looked inside the shed, which seemed to be used for storage, and asked YFD personnel if they knew where Marvin was hanging from. YFD personnel said yup and showed me where they had removed the rope from because it was in the way. YFD personnel held up the rope and showed me the rope was hanging from the center of the shed. So it sounds like the rope was still hanging in the center, so maybe he had been cut down here or here and still hanging in the center of the shed and it was in their way, and YFD maybe cut it down, maybe pulled it down. These notes are not clear. YFD personnel then dropped the rope on the ground, leaving it in the center of the shed. The shed had some items on the left and right, like a few shop vac and random household items, but the center was clear. I took photographs of the metal shed and a rope. The rope appeared long and was a thick, heavy-duty, twisted type of rope. I did not inspect the rope further. I uploaded all photos to evidence.com. I walked to my patrol vehicle to move it closer to the residence since the rescue unit was gone and I had parked further down the street. I walked back to Officer Iguana's location with Andrea as she is talking to him about Marvin's behavior. I asked Andrea if her children were okay. I asked because the call notes stated there were children in the home. Andrea said her children do not know what happened. Andrea stated she called her daughter Bella for help but did not want her to see, so she told her to go back inside. Andrea said she was freaking out. Andrea said she needed to get him but didn't know how and she was scared. Andrea stated the children probably heard her screaming but did not see any of it. Since the children were not witnesses to the incident, I did not speak to the children. I offered Amberly's place as a resource and Officer Iguana continued with his investigation. I asked Officer Iguana if he needed any more assistance. Officer Iguana said no, I cleared the scene without any further involvement. So there we go. Let's talk about Andrea's reaction. First, let's read John 1:12 through 13. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision, or of a husband's will, but born of God. The reaction of Andrea can be read several different ways, but I hadn't heard that before. The way she reacted when she heard that Vaughn had a pulse, her eyes got real big, she stood up, reached out to me, this female officer grabbing my hands, she was shaking, and her hands felt cool to the touch. That part I didn't know. Either it surprised her or she thought, wow, God did answer my prayers. This is an unusual miracle. I don't know how she knew he had no pulse before. Maybe the EMTs told her, or maybe not. Maybe she felt for a pulse, but now Marvin had a pulse before he left, so maybe she was overjoyed. Her eyes got real big, and she grabbed the officer's hands. We could read that any different number of ways. It could be relief, it could be fear. Maybe she thought he was gone, now he's back. I hadn't heard that before. Wow, this is some incident, and I'm glad it's still being investigated. It very well could have been just Marvin. Maybe he went to that yard. Maybe when the closet attempt, if it's true, failed, maybe he decided, I'll try the shed. Maybe he was in the shed one day and realized and looked at the beam, and who knows if he really did make that sad, awful decision. I know there's plenty of thoughts on his surroundings and his marriage and what could have drove him to it, fair or unfair. I just want to get to the bottom of it and know what is the truth. Thank you so much for watching all of this. Stay tuned. We will still keep up with this case and others as they unfold. Sometimes it takes a very long time for cases to unfold, but I really appreciate you watching it all. And again, if you're especially a medical expert or a layman or whatever, thank you for commenting and letting me know your thoughts on it all. Take care. God bless.